First, we want to glance over the questions. What impression of the author does the passage suggest? Number 2, why does the author describe Italian money in line 4? Number 3, what matter does the author explain in lines 4 through 12? I stubbornly refuse this idea, reflects the author's. What was the English artist's opinion as expressed by his message? Number 6, the word elsewhere in line 25 suggests what about relocating objects? Number 7, the author's incorporation of photography suggests that the author assumes. And which of these educational art programs would the author most likely endorse? Okay, now we've got an idea of what we're looking for in the passage. You want to know about what the author's like. There are quite a few line references, so you're going to want to be able to paraphrase what the author's saying or interpret what they're saying. There's also going to be at the end a comparison of art programs with which you think this author would connect. February 18th. The airplane will transport me the morning of February 22nd. My spirit will rise, I'm sure, when my flight begins. Every street, path, building, cafe in Florence is coded into my brain so that I will always be sure of my alignment on a compass. I'm still learning Italian. Italian currency is marked by the images of great artists, Michelangelo, Brancusi, Vivaldi. I'm overcome with astonishment. I hear a faint trumpet from a fresh perspective. I ponder the possibility of feeling my cultural roots sown more deeply in Europe than in that open horizontal expanse of the United States. I stubbornly refuse this idea. I also realize that this may have kept me from Europe for years. I fear its wisdom and challenge to my own small accomplishments and freedom which I value, maybe unduly. I'm mildly surprised, maybe pleased, that a keen artist from England has already noted my limitations. I'm certain you are eager to visit Florence. You most assuredly will discover vast new reservoirs of thought. February 23rd, 7 at night. Arrived in Florentine Airport. Helpful Italians guided me. Found a taxi which took me to my daughter's hotel by the square and the Accademia, a space with the dreamlike genesis mutated into flourishing reality. The American in me remarked, no wonder Mussolini was so hated. No one should be so powerful. But this does not concern me now. The architecture so harmoniously attunes the earth and sky to structure that I move within art. I am relieved. Artists like me ordered this space. Maybe now, for the first time, I feel that my humanity does not inhibit my intuitive divine sense. February 25th. The Accademia lured my daughter and me. Maps in tow. The Accademia wound up a lifetime of study into a single tiny spool and placed it firmly in my palm. Infinite spaces, like the ones in dreams, were lined with such magnificent work that I was in fear as much as I was in awe. Art's wedding to place is remarkably apparent in cities like Florence. Chinese art in America looks isolated and reclusive. Mayan art, an awesome force in Latin America, looks like decoration elsewhere. European art in America is weak and diseased compared to the European art here. Along those lines, I wish photography could be used solely as a means to an artistic end rather than an instrument of reproduction. Reproduction funnels the vast and potent power of art into a stream of weak, even insignificant information. What impression of the author does the passage suggest? Okay, these are feelings. We're going to be wanting to know what the author is communicating to us, what the author's feeling is as he or she is writing this. If we go back and look at the passage, the pertinent part of the passage is this first part. My spirit will rise, I'm sure, when the flight begins. Every street, path, building, cafe in Florence is coded into my brain. There's going to be a faint trumpet from a fresh perspective. And Academia wound up a lifetime of study into a single tiny spool and placed it firmly in my palm. So this is a spiritual, kind of contemplative feeling, isn't it? The author is talking about something very moving, feeling in a dreamlike state, feeling fear and awe. Okay, so when we look back at our answer choices, we're looking for an impression. Well, irresolute means they're indecisive or vacillating, and ambiguous means vague or unclear. Resentful and regretful mean offended, angry for resentful, and then regretful is to be apologetic or sorry for something. Down in D, if you're obstinate, you're stubborn. If someone is impulsive, they're impetuous, spontaneous, they do things impulsively. If you're jocular, you're humorous, playful. And if you're congenial, you're friendly and pleasant. Okay, introspective means to be reflective, thoughtful, pensive, as does contemplative. So C is our obvious answer here. Question number 2. Why does the author describe Italian currency in line 4? When we read line 4, we see that it's marked by images of great artists: Michelangelo, Brancusi, Vivaldi. There's a reason for that. If we look at our answer choices, we can pretty readily rule out C to show that the author was unaware of the practices. D isn't going to work either, because it's not to show how Italians are less materialistic than Americans, because you're showing artists. It isn't to emphasize the importance of the author's financial need. So that leaves us with A and B. We rule out B because it says to illustrate that the value of art is tied to its financial potential. Like showing the value of art and how highly it's regarded in Italy, but it's not tied to its financial potential. That rules that out. So we're left with A to give an example of how highly the arts are regarded in Italy. They put artists on the coins. Number 3. What does the author explain in lines 4 through 12? Here we need to look at the author's feelings. They're talking about the author is overcome with astonishment, has a fresh perspective. The author fears its wisdom and challenge. And the English artist observes that the author is going to discover new reservoirs of thought that's going to change the author in a significant way. If we look at the answer choices critically, we can see C, that her art may be misinterpreted by the public. That's not being conveyed there. Not whether or not she'll be moving permanently to Italy. Not how she and other artists relate to each other. We get a little bit that she may be unsure of her future as an artist. But A is a very strong answer. Facets means aspects or sides or faces of herself. So that the author is about to find new things about herself is quite apparent here. It's a thing of discovery. Number 4. I stubbornly refuse this idea. Reflects the author's... Okay, so we're going to want to know why the author is stubbornly rejecting something, and specifically what idea the author is rejecting. And here's the pertinent phrase. If we look at this, I stubbornly refuse this idea. What idea is that? Well, the author's pondering the possibility of feeling her cultural roots sown more deeply in Europe than in the open expanse of the United States. And she fears its wisdom and challenge to her own accomplishments. Looking at the answer choices, aesthetic means artistic taste. So we can rule out A. The author is not showing a distaste for the European aesthetic in paintings. Certainly not showing a desire to learn Italian language or culture, and not rejecting her own happiness in her own achievements. The idea she's looking at, you could see a little bit of B in there, resolve not to be perceived as foreign. The author's trying to blend in. The author's trying to immerse herself in the entire experience. But we don't pick up really that she's trying to hide the fact that she's American. So we're left with C, that she hopes to be independent in her travels throughout Europe, to maintain her free will, her free independent thought. Number 5. What was the English artist's opinion as expressed by his message? Here we note that it's a keen artist, meaning sharp. And the artist observes that you most assuredly will discover vast new reservoirs of thought. So the artist is observing that she's going to experience changes. We can pretty quickly rule out C, D, and E. the author's past work has been utterly reliant on Italian aesthetic is incorrect. That Italian artists could benefit from the author's teaching, that's way off. And that all successful artists migrate elsewhere to learn a more complete worldview of art is completely off topic. We're left with A and B. A, the author cannot know yet what she will discover through studying European art in Europe. That's an implication, and probably not an incorrect answer. But we have a better one in B, because the artist references discovery, and that's what the author's going to do, change her character and her future work with these travels. Number 6, the word elsewhere in line 25 suggests what about relocating objects? This is pretty strong and clear. Chinese art in America looks isolated and reclusive. Mayan art on awesome force in Latin America looks like decoration elsewhere. European art in America is weak and diseased compared to the European art here. So we can see that the author is highly in favor of art being in its own surroundings. So we can rule out B, C, D, and E as being way off mark. A is what we're left with, especially the first part of it, ineffective. Obsolete isn't a great answer there, but we have ineffective that far outweighs obsoletes not being exactly what we'd like to see there. And remember, on the SAT you're looking for the best answer of your choices, not necessarily the ideal one. 7. The author's incorporation of photography in lines 22 and 25 suggests that the author assumes what? Okay, we have our reference to photography, and the author wants it to be used solely as a means to an artistic end rather than an instrument of reproduction. And here's the emphatic statement. Reproduction funnels the vast and potent power of art into a stream of weak, even insignificant information. In inspecting our answer choices, we can see that there's an implication that painting is a higher art than photography. So let's not completely rule that out yet. Talks about most people cannot discriminate between originals and reproductions. That's a little bit off target. Reproductions allow for many people to view and understand art. No, that's a positive, and the author definitely wasn't positive about it. Reproduction methods have not yet been refined. No, that's again off topic. But we have a very definite and strong answer here where it says reproductions lessen the experience of viewing art. That's a better answer than A. Here we have an outside inference question. Which of these educational art programs would this author most likely endorse? So here you got to say our author would agree with something outside the passage. Key phrasing here, art's wedding to place is remarkably apparent in cities like Florence. We've read this section once before, and remember what we took from it was that art belongs where it's created. It has its sense of place. Looking at our answer choices, C, D, and E we can eliminate pretty readily. They're simply not on topic. We are left with B and A. A, reflections upon art within their native context. That looks awfully good. An in-depth study of art produced indigenous to one's native region. Okay, this is talking about a study of art produced there. The in-depth study puts it a little bit off target. We're talking about reflecting or being contemplative, appreciating the art within its context than we are about studying art produced in a specific place.